The sky was clear. The flight was normal. Two experienced pilots were doing their job when something impossible appeared in front of them. It was not a plane. It was not a star. It moved without sound and without warning. The pilots saw it clearly with their own eyes. Moments later, radar systems on the ground confirmed the same object. Multiple screens tracked it. Everything pointed to one truth. This thing was real. Then, without any explanation, it vanished. No signal, no trace, no answers. What the pilots saw that night was recorded, confirmed, and then buried in silence. This is the story of what happened when pilots saw it, radar confirmed it, and then everything went quiet. The flight moved quietly through the night sky. The airplane was high above the clouds, steady and calm. Inside the cockpit, two pilots watched their instruments while the engines hummed softly. This route was familiar to them. They had flown it many times before without any trouble. The sky was dark, and the stars were faint. Everything felt normal. One pilot adjusted his seat and looked outside the window. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then a small light caught his eye. It was far away, glowing softly. He thought it might be a star or another aircraft, but something felt strange about it. The light was moving slowly at first, then faster. He leaned closer to the window and focused his eyes. The light changed direction suddenly. It did not turn like a plane. It did not leave a trail. It moved smoothly, almost effortlessly. His heart beat faster. He called the second pilot and pointed toward the light. The second pilot looked and froze. He had never seen anything like this before. The object was now closer. It was bright, round, and silent. No blinking lights, no engine sound. It hovered for a moment, then moved again. Both pilots felt a mix of fear and confusion. They checked their instruments. Everything on the plane was working fine. Then they looked at the onboard radar. A signal appeared. Something was out there, matching the position of the object they could see. This was not an illusion. This was real. The pilot picked up the radio and contacted air traffic control. His voice was calm, trained, and professional. He reported an unidentified object near their flight path. He described its movement and position carefully. On the ground, the controller listened closely and began checking radar systems. At first, the controller saw nothing. Then a bright mark appeared on the screen. It was moving fast, too fast. It did not follow any known route. It had no identification signal. The controller felt uneasy and called for assistance. Other radar stations were alerted. Military and civilian systems began tracking the object. All of them saw the same thing. The unknown object was real. It was flying near a commercial airplane. The data matched the pilot's report exactly. The pilots were told to continue flying normally, but to keep watching the object. Outside the window, the object now moved closer. It was smooth and metallic. Light reflected off its surface. It stayed beside the plane, keeping the same speed without effort. The pilots felt a deep fear they could not explain. Years of training had prepared them for emergencies, storms, and mechanical failures. But this was different. This was something unknown, something beyond their understanding. Passengers in the cabin felt nothing. They slept, talked, and watched movies. They had no idea that something impossible was happening just outside the aircraft. The pilots kept their focus and continued reporting every movement. Suddenly, the object shot upward. It moved faster than any aircraft the pilots had ever seen. In seconds, it was far above them. The radar still tracked it, climbing rapidly. Controllers on the ground watched in silence. Then something strange happened. The object stopped. It hovered at an altitude no plane could reach. Radar signals became unstable. Screens flickered. For a brief moment, communication crackled. Then the object vanished. The radar mark disappeared completely. No fading, no slow exit. It was simply gone. One radar screen went blank for a few seconds. Then it returned to normal. The sky was empty. The pilots stared at the radar, and then at each other. Outside the window, there was nothing. No light, no movement. Just darkness and stars. Air traffic control asked if the object was still visible. The pilots answered honestly. It was gone, both visually and on radar. Silence filled the cockpit. The rest of the flight continued without incident. But nothing felt normal anymore. The pilots kept replaying the moment in their minds. They knew what they had seen. Radar had confirmed it. And now, there was no trace. When the plane landed, the pilots were met by officials. They were taken away quietly, away from passengers. They were asked to describe everything again, in detail. Every second mattered. They spoke for hours. Their statements matched perfectly. Radar data supported their story. No explanation fit the event. By the end of the night, the incident was classified. Records were restricted. The pilots were advised to stay silent. That night left a mark on them forever. They had seen something that challenged everything they believed about the sky. Pilots saw it. Radar confirmed it. Then, there was silence. The morning after the incident felt heavy and strange. The pilots were taken into a quiet room away from the busy airport. Officials waited there, serious and calm. They asked the pilots to sit down and speak slowly. Every word mattered now. The pilots understood this was not a normal report anymore. They were asked to describe the event again from the very beginning. What time did they first see the object? Where was it located? How fast was it moving? The pilots answered carefully. Their memories were clear. The image of the object was burned into their minds. Radar experts joined the room. They showed screens and charts. The data confirmed the same thing again and again. The object appeared suddenly. It matched the pilot's location. It moved with speed and control that no known aircraft could achieve. Then, it vanished without warning. The officials exchanged quiet looks. No one smiled. No one joked. This was serious. The pilots were asked about their health. Had they slept well? Were they stressed? Had they taken any medication? The answer to all was no. They were experienced, trained, and alert. Hours passed. The pilots felt tired but stayed focused. They wanted answers too, but the officials did not explain much. They only listened and wrote notes. Finally, the pilots were told they could leave, but they were advised not to speak about the incident to anyone. The word advised sounded polite, but the meaning was clear. Silence was expected. Days went by. The pilots returned to their normal lives, but nothing felt normal. Every flight felt different. Every strange light in the sky caught their attention. The memory followed them everywhere. On the ground, the incident moved into secure offices and locked files. Radar data was copied, stored, and restricted. Only a small group of people could access it. The event received a code name. It became part of a long list of unexplained encounters. Air traffic controllers involved in the incident were also questioned. Their stories matched the data. They had seen the object appear clearly on radar. They had tracked it, and then it disappeared. Some controllers admitted they felt afraid that night. Soon, small rumors began to spread. Someone working late had mentioned a strange radar event. A technician hinted that systems behaved in ways they never had before. These whispers stayed quiet but persistent. A short message appeared online from an anonymous account. It mentioned pilots, radar confirmation, and sudden silence. It did not last long. Within hours, the message was deleted. The account disappeared. Journalists tried to investigate. They contacted aviation authorities and defense offices. The answers were short and unclear. Officials said there was no threat. They said it was likely a technical issue. They said there was nothing to worry about, but the explanations did not satisfy everyone. Independent researchers noticed patterns. They compared this incident with older reports. Pilots in different countries had described similar objects. Radar systems had confirmed them, and silence always followed. Retired pilots began to speak quietly in private interviews. They said these events were more common than people believed. Many were hidden. Many were ignored. Many were explained away with simple answers that did not match the facts. One of the pilots from that night struggled with sleep. When he closed his eyes, he saw the object again. The smooth movement, the sudden climb, the way it vanished. He knew this was not weather. It was not a drone. It was something else. He wondered who else knew the truth. How many incidents were buried in files? How many radar screens had shown impossible things? Weeks later, a closed meeting was held. Scientists, engineers, and military officials attended. They studied the data carefully. Their conclusion was quiet and careful. The technology seen that night was beyond current human ability. That idea was uncomfortable. It raised too many questions. Was the object testing human systems? Was it observing? Or was it simply passing through? No one had answers. The pilots were never officially told what the object was. No explanation was given. Life moved on around them, but the mystery stayed. The sky remained the same. Yet it felt different now. Wider, deeper, more unknown. People looked up every night without knowing what might be looking back. Pilots had seen it. Radar had confirmed it, and the silence continued. Time continued to move forward, but the mystery did not fade. The pilots carried the experience with them every day. They flew new routes, different skies, and many nights passed quietly. Yet the memory of that object stayed alive in their minds, clear and sharp. One pilot tried to forget. He focused on routine, on checklists, and on familiar sounds inside the cockpit. But sometimes, during long flights, he would look out at the dark sky and feel a strange sense of watchfulness. He wondered if the object still existed somewhere beyond human reach. The other pilot chose a different path. He began reading old reports and stories in his free time. He searched for similar cases from the past. Slowly, he found patterns. Sightings reported by pilots, radar confirmation, sudden loss of signal, and then silence from officials. Governments around the world began to release small pieces of information. They used careful language. They admitted that unknown aerial objects had been observed. They confirmed that pilots and radar systems were reliable, but they avoided strong conclusions. The public reacted in many ways. Some people were curious. Some were afraid. Others laughed and dismissed it as fiction. Online discussions grew louder. Videos and theories spread quickly. Everyone had an explanation, but none were proven. Scientists examined the limited data that was shared. They agreed on one thing. The movements recorded were beyond current human technology. Instant acceleration, sharp turns, silent travel. These features challenged known laws of physics. Military officials remained cautious. They said there was no sign of threat. They said there was no hostile action. But they did not say what the objects were. This careful silence only made the mystery deeper. The The pilot who researched old cases found reports from decades ago. Some dated back to the early days of radar. Different countries, different aircraft. Same story. Pilots saw something. Radar confirmed it. Then it disappeared. He realized this was not a single event. It was part of something much larger. One evening, he spoke privately with a retired air traffic controller. The man was old and quiet. He said he had seen strange things on radar many years ago. He said those events were never explained. Files were closed. People were told to move on. The controller said the silence was intentional. Not because of danger, but because of uncertainty. Admitting the truth meant admitting limits. The pilots understood that idea well. Aviation was built on control, safety, and knowledge. Something unknown in the sky challenged that foundation. Years passed. New technology improved radar systems. Cameras became sharper, sensors became smarter, and still, strange objects were occasionally reported, not often. Just enough to remind people that the mystery remained. One night, during a routine flight, a pilot noticed a brief radar signal. It appeared for only a second. Then it was gone. Nothing was visible. The signal was dismissed as interference. But the pilot felt uneasy. He did not report it. The silence had taught him something. Sometimes, speaking changed nothing. Public interest slowly shifted to other topics. News cycles moved on. But among pilots, radar operators, and scientists, the question never fully disappeared. What was in the sky, and why did it leave no answers? Some believed the objects were advanced human technology, hidden from public view. Others believed they came from somewhere beyond Earth. Many believed the truth was still unknown. The pilots from that first night eventually retired. They lived quiet lives. But sometimes, when the sky was clear and stars were bright, they looked up and remembered. They remembered the fear, the confirmation, the sudden emptiness on the radar screen. They knew one thing for certain they had not imagined. If pilots saw it, radar confirmed it. Then silence followed. That silence still waits above the world, unanswered and watching. The flight ended safely, but the questions never did. The pilots returned home. The radar screens went dark, and the reports were locked away. No clear explanation was ever given. What was seen in the sky that night remains unknown. But one truth cannot be erased. Trained pilots witnessed it. Trusted radar systems confirmed it. And then the world was left with silence. Maybe the sky is not as empty as we think. Maybe some answers are still waiting above us, hidden in the dark. Until then, the mystery remains.